Think about it for a second. July 20th, 1969. All of humanity is just glued to their TVs, watching one of the most incredible things we've ever done. We walked on the moon. But that amazing moment? It's now right at the center of a huge debate that's been bubbling up for more than 50 years. So today, we're going to dig into that one big question. If we went to the moon, why did we stop?
Okay, so let's get into it. On the surface, the story's pretty straightforward. Between 1969 and 1972, NASA's Apollo program was, well, a massive success. They didn't just do it once. Nope, they landed 6 different missions, putting 12 astronauts on the moon. It was just this incredible, rapid-fire series of wins that really felt like the beginning of a new age in space.
And right there, that's where the story takes a weird turn. After Apollo 17 in 1972, we just stopped for 52 years. And think about it, this is an age where our technology has gone completely vertical. We carry supercomputers in our pockets. We have AI that can write a song for us, and yet we haven't set foot back on the moon. It's this huge, long silence that's at the heart of one of the biggest debates out there.
To really get why we stopped, you first have to understand why we even went in the first place. And the truth is, this wasn't just about pure science or some noble quest for exploration. Not really. It was about politics. It was about the Cold War.
You see, the context here is absolutely everything. Back in 1957, when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, it sent a total shockwave across the United States. It was a panic. Suddenly America was very, very publicly falling behind its #1 rival. The pressure to score a huge, undeniable win in space was just immense.
And this, right here, is the moment that defined the entire mission. When President Kennedy gave that famous speech, he didn't just set a goal, he set a deadline. This wasn't some fuzzy, let's go explore kind of thing. No way. This was a crystal clear political objective, and it was aimed squarely at proving American dominance over the Soviet Union. The moon was the finish line in a race that we absolutely could not lose.
And that incredible political pressure, that feeling that we had to win no matter what, well, that's the bedrock for one of the wildest theories about why we haven't been back. It's the shocking idea that maybe we never actually went in the first place.
So the thinking from the theorists goes like this. The motive was obvious. America couldn't lose the space race, so they faked it. They suggest this giant Hollywood-style production to trick the entire planet. They question everything, from photos with weird-looking shadows to whether the 382 kilograms of moon rocks are even real. And what really fuels their suspicion today? They point right at NASA's new Artemis missions and ask, hey, if you guys already have the blueprint for 6 successful landings, why are you doing so many test flights now, 50 years later, just to try and get back?
But then, of course, you have the other side of the coin. This is the explanation that most historians and analysts stand by. It's way less dramatic, but you know what? It's incredibly powerful. The reason we stopped going to the moon wasn't some big conspiracy. It came down to a line on a budget sheet. Plain and simple, it was just too darn expensive.
Just look at this number. It really gives you a sense of the scale we're talking about. The Apollo program cost about $25 billion back then, but in today's money, that's $250 billion, a staggering amount. To put that in perspective, at its peak, the Apollo program was eating up over 4% of the entire U.S. federal budget. It was one of the most expensive projects humanity has ever taken on. So here's the crucial point. The whole reason for going completely changed. Back in the 60s, the mission was a political victory, and the cost was just what it was. But once we won the race, that political fire just went out. Public interest started to fade, and the country's attention turned to other big problems, like the Vietnam War and social issues at home. The reason to keep writing those massive checks, it just wasn't there anymore.
And so, with that main goal checked off the list, the money got moved around, the focus shifted to things like the reusable space shuttle and the International Space Station. Now those are still super ambitious, but they were way less expensive because they were all happening in low Earth orbit. And here's the really critical part. The specialized factories that built the Apollo rockets, they were shut down. The rockets were taken apart, an entire generation of brilliant engineers retired, and all that specific know-how started to fade. So we didn't just lose the money, we lost the actual ability to do it. Trying to start again after 50 years isn't like dusting off an old car. It's like having to reinvent the entire auto industry from scratch.
But, this story is far from over. After this 50-year-long break, NASA is finally planning on going back to the moon. And this new chapter, the Artemis program, has become the main piece of evidence for both sides of this very old argument. So the Artemis program is NASA's huge new plan to build a long-term human base on the moon. Artemis II is supposed to be a test flight with a crew that will just orbit the moon, and that's meant to set the stage for Artemis III, the first actual landing since 1972. But here's the twist. How you see these new missions completely depends on which side of the great moon debate you're on.
And this is really where it all comes together. For the theorists, all these careful, multi-step test missions are just more proof that the original landings were a hoax. This, they say, is the real first attempt. But for the analysts and for NASA, it's just the obvious, safe, and logical way to do things after a 5-decade break, especially when you're using completely new technology and basically relearning everything. The exact same facts are being used to come to two totally opposite conclusions.
So in the end, it all comes down to this one last nagging question. Was it really just about the money? Can a nation that spends trillions of dollars on wars and conflicts really have given up on humanity's greatest adventure just to save some cash? Or is there something more to this story we're not seeing? Well, that's for you to decide.